Assalamu alaikum. Are you ready for today's story?
I can't wait to know what happened to them in the desert.
So excited, huh? Alright, let me start from where we stopped yesterday. Bismillah. The test of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam left his wife and his son in a barren desert as commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had left them with a small amount of food and water that would hardly last for 2 days. He walked away praying that they would be found by good people. Hajar radiallahu anha drank the water that the Prophet had left so that she could feed her son. The water got over very soon and both of them started getting very thirsty. After some time, the baby started getting thirsty and started to cry. She ran to a hill close by called Al-Marwa, hoping that she might find somebody. She stood there hoping to find somebody, but she did not. Then she ran to the next mountain called Al-Safa, hoping to find someone from there. But she couldn't find anyone from there either. She kept running between these mountains 7 times. When she climbed Al-Marwa for the last time, she was very tired. She got so tired that she sat next to her baby. It was then she heard a voice. She kept quiet and waited to hear the voice again. When she heard the voice for the second time, she said, "Oh, whoever you might be, you have made me hear your voice. Have you got something to help me?" That was when she saw an angel digging the earth. The angel kept digging till the water flowed from it. It was a miracle. When she saw the water, she ran toward it and started to build a basin around it. She scooped the water with her hands and drank from it. Then she filled the water bag and ran towards her child. This place where the water rose is called Zamzam. After a few days, some people were traveling through Mecca. They saw the birds flying around Al-Marwa and they thought the birds might be flying around the water. They started walking towards Al-Marwa. When they arrived, they were surprised to find a woman with a baby sitting near the water. "Shall we stay here and use this water, please?" they asked her. Hajar said yes, and they drank water from the Zamzam. Like that, many others came to Al-Marwa and eventually settled down there. The whole valley became alive now, and she and her child were not alone anymore. Ismail grew up and learned Arabic from the people who had settled down at Al-Marwa. He was a good boy, and his virtues and qualities made the people admire him. He kept thinking about his father and knew that his father will come back someday. Ismail then married a local woman and lived his life in peace. In the meantime, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was very sad because he had not seen his son for a very long time. One day, he decided to go to Mecca to meet his wife and his son. He traveled for many days and finally arrived at Al-Marwa. But it was very late. When he arrived, people told him that Hajar had died some time ago. The Prophet was very sad to hear this, and then the local people told the Prophet that his son, Ismail, was still alive. The Prophet was very happy to hear this and thanked Allah. When Ismail saw his father, he ran to him and hugged him very tightly. He could not believe his eyes. He was very happy to see his father after a long, long time. It was a very happy time for both of them. But one day, Allah decided to test Ibrahim. One night when the Prophet was sleeping, he saw a dream. In his dream, the Prophet saw himself killing his son as a sacrifice to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet woke up and ignored it as it was just a dream. But the next night, he saw the same dream again. This time he realized that this was not just a dream and that Allah was asking him to sacrifice his own son. The Prophet went to his son and told him about the dream. Ismail realized that it was an order from Allah. Do what Allah has asked you to, he told his father. The next day, the Prophet took a rope and a knife and set out for Mount Arafat along with his son. Upon reaching the top of the mountain, Ismail asked his father to tie his hand and legs so that he might not struggle during the sacrifice. The Prophet obliged and tied his hands and legs. Then he blindfolded himself so that he won't have to watch his son suffer. The Prophet raised his knife, but then suddenly he heard a voice from the sky. He took off his blindfold and saw a sheep being sent from heaven. Allah had sent a sheep to be sacrificed instead of Ismail. The Prophet was really happy because his son was going to be alive. The Prophet and his son had just passed a difficult test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibrahim alayhi salam slaughtered the sheep and they had a big celebration. The Prophet and his son kept calling people to worship Allah. They didn't have any place to worship Allah, so one day Allah ordered the Prophet to build a house. Allah has ordered me to build the Kaaba, the Prophet said to his son. And Ismail replied, do what your God has ordered you to do. The Prophet then asked his son if he help him build the Kaaba. And Ismail agreed. They started building the foundation of the Kaaba. Ismail alayhi salam brought the stones while Ibrahim alayhi salam built the house. When the walls got tall, Ismail brought a large stone for the Prophet to work by standing on it. This stone was called Maqam Ibrahim. When they completed the foundation and built the corners, Ibrahim asked Ismail to find the stone to fill the corner. I feel tired, Ismail said to his father. But when Ibrahim insisted, Ismail went searching for the stone. While he was gone, an angel got the Prophet a stone. The angel told him that this stone was brought to earth by Adam alayhi salam from paradise. The stone was originally white. However, its color gradually turned into black because of the sins committed by people on earth. Ismail returned after some time, and when he saw the stone, he was surprised and asked his father where it came from. It was brought by someone who never gets tired, replied Ibrahim. And they finally completed building the Kaaba. They prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept their work. Allah was very happy with the Prophet and his son for spreading his message and proclaimed the pilgrimage among men. They will come to thee on foot and on every kind of camel. Lean an account of journeys through deep and distant mountain highways. The Prophet grew old and so did his wife Sarah. One day when he was sitting outside his house, he saw 3 men coming towards his house. The 3 men were actually angels sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet welcomed them inside to have food. The strangers went in and sat down for food. The Prophet served them a roasted calf, but the strangers did not touch the food at all. The Prophet started to fear. Then the angels comforted the Prophet and asked him not to fear at all. They told him that they were actually the angels sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They informed him that they came to his house to deliver a good news. They said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to give them a son and that he should name him Ishaq. They also told him that his son would be a prophet. Sarah could not believe her ears. How could that be true? She wondered. I am so old. Then the angel said all these things are possible with Allah. After a few months, Sarah got pregnant and gave birth to a child. The Prophet named him Ishaq, as the angels told him. After a few years, Prophet Ibrahim missed his son Ismail badly, so he went to see him. But when the Prophet reached the house of Ismail, he was not at home. His wife came out, and when the Prophet asked her about Ismail, she replied, "He has gone in search of livelihood." He then asked her how was their living conditions, to which she started complaining about everything. She complained that they were living in misery and hardship, and many other things. She was not at all grateful to the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet realized that she was not at all a suitable wife for his son, so left her a message that his son would understand. When your husband returns, convey my salutations to him, he said, and also tell him to change the threshold of the gate. The Prophet then went back to his home. When Ismail returned home in the evening, he felt something unusual. Did anyone visit us today? He asked her. She replied, yes, and passed on the message. When Ismail heard the message, he realized that it was his father who visited him that day, and he understood the message that he gave her. It was my father, and he has advised me to divorce you. You can go back to your family, he told her. His wife went back to her house, and Ismail married another woman. After a long time, Prophet Ibrahim again missed his son badly, so he visited his new house once again. When he arrived, it was his new wife who answered the door. The Prophet asked the same questions he had asked his former wife. But this time when she answered, the Prophet realized that she was a very grateful and kind woman. She kept thanking Allah for the wonderful things going on around, and the Prophet was very happy. When your husband comes home, give him my regards, the Prophet told Ismail's wife. He also added, and also tell him that he should keep the threshold of this gate firm. He left after asking her to deliver the secret message. In the evening, when Ismail came back, he asked his wife if anyone had come to visit him. When his wife told him about the Prophet and the message, Ismail was very happy. It was my father, said Ismail, and you are the threshold of the gate. He asked me to keep you with me forever, said the Prophet happily. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam lived for 175 years. He lived a life full of trials, but he had a strong faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The life of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam teaches us to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unconditionally, even though there are more than 25 prophets mentioned in the Quran. Allah mentions only 2 prophets, ideal for whole humanity, and they were Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam.
MashaAllah, that was such an amazing story.
So you like the story of Ibrahim?
I loved it, Baba.
All right, now let me ask you a few questions from the story. Shall I?
Go ahead.
Tell me the names of the mountains that Hajar radiallahu anha ran across.
They were Al-Safa and Al-Marwa.
That's the right answer. Now tell me how the travelers found the Prophet's wife. I'll give you 3 options. Option A, they saw animals running towards the mountain. Option B, they saw water flowing down the mountain. Option C, they saw birds flying above the mountain.
It was option C. The travelers saw the birds flying above the mountains.
That's right again. The next question. How did God test Ibrahim alayhi salam?
I know that one. God asked Ibrahim to sacrifice his only son, Ishmael.
And did he sacrifice his son?
No, just before the sacrifice, God told the Prophet that he was testing him. And God sent a sheep instead for the sacrifice.
MashaAllah, that's the right answer. You are doing great, my son.
Thank you, Baba.
Why did the color of the stone that the angels brought turn from white to black?
It was because of the sins committed by the people on earth.
Excellent. And now for the last question. What was the name of the second son of the Prophet?
It was Ishaq alayhi salam. Isn't that right, Baba?
Yes, my son, that's the right answer. That's all for today. Insha'Allah, I will tell you the story of Prophet Ismail alayhi salam tomorrow.
Which story are you going to tell me tomorrow?
Insha'Allah, I will tell you the story of Prophet Ismail alayhi salam tomorrow.
Thanks, Baba.
Good night.